Why make big effort when no effort do trick? So I don't have any insane stories where I trip a fire alarm so I can glimpse a 3-second peek at an answer sheet or anything cool like that, but I do have my fair share of stupid cheating moments. So in 6th grade, we were taking a geology exam in which we had a short essay portion. Now our desks were arranged like this, so you already know where this is going. I'm taking my test like normal, and every time I write a sentence down, the kid in front of me, we'll call him Sam, would also write a sentence because, Sam was cheating. But I didn't really care, so I finished the test and we made sure to keep our test papers separate so when the teacher would grade through the papers, she wouldn't read two similar sounding papers in a row. Flash forward to when we were getting our papers back and surprise, we were called to meet with the teacher outside. Now I wasn't about to snitch on this kid cause mama ain't raised no rat. And we gambled marbles on the school field, so I wasn't inclined to say anything. Sam comes up with the excuse that we were study partners, but obviously the teacher wasn't buying it because the pacing and the flow of our essays were identical. Our teacher decided to single me out because she knew I had a tiger mom since she taught my sister a few years back. Luckily, this had the opposite effect she was going for because instead of spilling it, I froze on the spot. So with no confession, she let us off for some weird reason. The part that bugs me is that she knew we cheated. In my mind, it's hard to catch when someone cheats on a short essay because I lack object permanence when it comes to reading. So when I finish reading one paragraph, it ceases to exist and I forget all about it. The fact that our papers were separated should have made it harder to tell, but I guess it's still possible. Anyways, after that stressful encounter, I definitely learned my lesson about cheating, and definitely wasn't spending every other 7th grade morning frantically copying algebra homework. Even if I was, that's a boring story to tell. But in 8th grade science class, our teacher liked to have peer-checked homework, so you already know where this is going. But basically the top 5 scorers on the last test would be homework helpers, and they would grade homeworks and give them to the teacher to input into the gradebook. Now I always scored within the top 5, so you already know I was giving out free points all the time. It got to the point where people only did like half the assignment and got like 90% marks. Of course I had to tell some people to staple a few blank pages into the packet to make it a believable size. And this went on for a couple of months until I guess one of our homework helpers didn't feel like doing their homework the one time our teacher decided to check our homeworks himself. And when 80% of the class isn't doing like 90% of their homework and still receiving like 90% marks, he was understandably furious and sent all of the homework helpers into the lab room while he proceeded to check everyone else's homework. But I'd be lying if I said 8th grade me wouldn't have done it again in a heartbeat. Now I wasn't involved in much cheating in high school since I took AP classes and people don't usually cheat in those, but there was one major exception. So my government teacher reused the same questions and answers every year. So past students compiled a list of these answers and they'd end up circulating through basically everyone taking the class. Now I knew who to ask for these answers, but senioritis hit so hard that cheating was too much effort for me, so I passed on the chance. Now my government teacher gave 2 types of tests, vocabulary test and multiple choice test. Vocabulary tests were easy since they were fill in the blank and had a word bank. About 75% of the words were basic enough that you knew the definition from previous years or basic enough to use the fill in the blank aspect of the test to figure out clues to what the answer might be. But the multiple choice tests, assuming you weren't cheating, were relatively difficult. So you'd expect a student to score higher on the vocabulary test than the multiple choice test. But our year of students showed an overwhelmingly opposite trend. So he slightly changed some of the questions but kept the same answers, and what do you know? Every single person that performed suspiciously well on the multiple choice questions would get those altered questions wrong. Of course our teacher brought this to the administration and they were like, whatever, we can't stop 100 kids from graduating. 100 kids which happen to include our valid Victorian candidates and most of the other top kids at our school. Now, of course, cheating is a problem, but the problem I have with this story is that these 100 kids memorized the answers to the test, but didn't bother to memorize the questions that they were the answers to. That sounds like studying, except you're doing almost the same amount of work while getting nothing in return. And I bring this story up because people seem to think teachers are oblivious to the cheating that happens in their classrooms. While this may be true for a couple of the more clever cheating methods, this isn't true in general. They have access to potentially thousands of hours of simulated classrooms prior to yours and probably have a lot of experience dealing with cheaters. But a lot of the time, it's usually up to administration to choose if people get punished or not, because at least in America, schools don't like to punish kids because it looks bad. And as my physics teacher once pointed out, your crotch isn't exciting enough for you to be staring at it half the time during a test.